All right. I don't want my partner getting overly excited, but welcome, Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. It's our Inside the Jets segment. We do this every week, and our regular is back with us. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports, and we'll hear a little bit more from our friends at Play It Again in just a little bit. But let's bring him on. He's our Jets insider. Let's welcome into the show from ESPN Radio and all his online entities, the one, the only, Jake Asman. How are you, Jake?
Jim, good to be with you again. I hope you're feeling a lot better. And
I am.
Boy Green, I mean, he crushed it last week in your absence, so it's good to see that he didn't fully Wally Pip you, and you're back on the show with him.
It was a bedridden man-child last week, so yes, I'm feeling much better. Back in with my students, and yes, things are a lot better. All right, but let's talk about this Jets game. You know, I think my nemesis here in the middle is going to say, hey, you know, there's a lot of cool positives coming out of this, and I think there are, and we can talk about them. But in the end, the Jets had a chance to win a football game here, and they didn't get it done. And your greatest fear came true, Jake. I cut it short on it to let people know how you were feeling about this, and that is the nightmare is that Aaron Rodgers goes out there and throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, and he wins the game for them. And, you know, it was probably more in Boswell's leg in that 60-yarder, but Aaron Rodgers had to get him into position. So let's talk about it. Jets lose in unfortunate fashion.
It's such a weird feeling because they did so many things well. Like, I understand why Boy Green is feeling, you know, optimistic, or, you know, people have used the term moral victory, which I despise, but I get it. Like, it didn't feel like your typical same old Jets game when you just look at the box score. But then you look at what happened. Ultimately, they lost. A big turnover had a lot to do with it. Thank God Aaron Glenn actually was willing to admit a mistake with Xavier Gipson and hold him accountable and move on. But that was a huge moment in the game. You had obviously a dropped pick 6 by Brandon Stevens that completely changes the narrative of Rodgers' revenge against the Jets if he catches that and returns it the other way with 6 minutes to go. So on one hand, you want to be optimistic because they look like they had a real game plan. They look like they were well coached. Offensively, they scored 32 points. Justin Fields played far better than I ever imagined he was capable of playing. So there were so many good things to be excited about or hopeful about. But at the end of the day, I'm with you, Jim. They lost. And ultimately, the moral victory, it doesn't count as a victory. Now you got to deal with the Bills on Sunday, and you're likely starting 0-2. So it's just tough to be, you know, that excited, even though there are some things to be excited about, if that makes sense.
Whoa. Starting 0-2, Jake Asman. Did you see the Achilles heel of the Buffalo Bills giving up? Let me check the stat again. A gajillion yards on the ground against Derrick Henry.
The Jets gave up 34 points, though. Like, are we going to be able to stop Josh Allen, Paul? Like, I hope you're right. Believe me. Like, a couple years ago, you know, there's a bit on my YouTube show where after, you know, big Jet wins, I drink like from a Hennessy bottle. And that all started because one of my regulars, his YouTube handle is Hennessy Heisman. And I was so down on the Jets after they had lost the previous week. I think it was to New England. Zach Wilson threw like 3 interceptions. And I'm like, here we go. The season's going to spiral. And they were like 14-point underdogs in the game. And the Jets won outright. But Hennessy said, hey, if they win, you have to come on the show and drink a bottle of Hennessy with me. And the Jets won. So I would love nothing more than a similar kind of script. Jets to upset the Bills at home. And I'm drinking Henny on my post-game show. I find it hard to believe they're going to do it. I think it could be a close game, but that's why I think the loss to the Steelers could be potentially so damaging, because it's such a winnable game where I felt like the Jets were the better team for most of it, and you didn't get the win to show for it.
So let's do a track meet, Jake. We'll draw the line in the sand. What is it, 40 points? Hey, Josh Allen, let's go. Because the offense was not the problem for the Jets. Justin Fields was cooking. They ran the ball all over the place, and Justin Fields as a passer looked great. And obviously the credit has to go to the players in the field, but Tanner Engstrand was friggin' cooking back there. That's what makes me feel so confident, because Aaron Glenn, as he hates this label, is a defensive guy. So any of the defensive issues, they should be able to figure out and slap together. If the offense was cooking, that was our biggest questions heading into the season, Jake.
I just hope a lot of what they did, Paul, is sustainable. One of the questions I have with the offense is, okay, now there's some film on what a Fields and Tanner Engstrand offense looks like. That didn't exist until, you know, this game on Sunday. How much of what they did can be replicated? Can they come up with, you know, new play calls out of the same concepts out there, the same formations, and kind of throw different wrinkles out there to keep, you know, the Bills, you know, off balance and unsure on what exactly the Jets are going to do. We know they're going to try and run the ball. We know Breece Hall is going to be heavily involved, and he should be. We know Fields' legs is going to be a big part of the game plan. That's going to be a constant every week. But what else can you do? Can you get your tight ends more involved this week? Are we going to see maybe more chances downfield and take advantage of a Bills secondary that could be susceptible there. I think that's kind of the big question I have with the offense. I love what they did. How much of it was the element of surprise with everything being new? How much of it is actually sustainable? I think a lot of it could be. I just got to see it because it's just weird for me as a Jet fan to picture the team actually having a good offense. But if they do it again against the Bills, now we might have something. Now you start to believe all of a sudden maybe you adjust your expectations for what this team could be.
Jake, one of the things I liked about Fields' performance, aside from just his efficiency, was, first of all, he created movement that Aaron Rodgers hasn't been able to create in recent years when the rush was on and when the Jets' offensive line maybe got beat. Okay, he was able to escape it. And then more importantly, he looked downfield. And rather than just taking off at times, which of course he's always dangerous and able to do, and you want him to do that from time to time, he looked down the field and he made some plays by keeping his eyes up. So did you see, dare I say, a little bit more maturity in his game this time around?
I think I did, Jim. I mean, I was shocked to see Fields a couple times when it looked like he was going to just take off and run. He stayed in the pocket or he stayed behind the line of scrimmage and was willing to still kind of keep his eyes downfield and try and find someone. A couple of those plays on 3rd and long where he hit Jeremy Rucker, the one play to Tyler Johnson. I was very impressed with his ability to basically kind of balance the, hey, you want to use your superpower, which is running, but also be able to stand in the pocket or be able to stand behind the line of scrimmage and still take chances downfield and be accurate with it. I was very impressed with all that. I thought the play calling put him in really good situations to have some success. So I'm so encouraged by what I saw there. The offensive line, how do we not talk about them? The job they did without Vera Tucker and finding that news out on Tuesday and then putting together a game plan with Tippin playing guard and Myers at center. I thought they both were very good. Membu was excellent at right tackle. Olu was excellent at left tackle. There's so much to like about what they did, and it all starts, of course, with Fields, but I think it's the best O-line he's ever played with. It might be the best play caller he's ever had, and these are things that try to give you some optimism that, hey, a guy who's only 26, maybe he can find it now in the right situation like we've seen some other guys across the league do the last few years.
Again, we're speaking with Jake Asman, ESPN Radio's finest, baby, the host of the Jake Asman Show, for God's sakes. And Jake, the Jets fans wanted blood after this Jets-Steelers game. Damn it, someone has to pay the iron price for this. And that was Xavier Gipson, who fumbled in the second half. Immediately, the Steelers turned it into a touchdown. The Jets ended up losing by 2. They gave up 7 points, that key situation. And the Jets today release Xavier Gipson, and they stole a Bengals practice squad return specialist, so throw Isaiah Williams into the mix. But let's keep the Xavier Gipson related. What do you make of Aaron Glenn basically being a man of his word after the game? He said, if there are players that are going to cost us games, they're not going to be here. And a few days later, Xavier Gipson's head is on a pike in front of one Jets drive.
Is it actually on a pike? That'd be breaking news to me.
I hope not. That'd be a little gruesome, but yes.
I was going to say, look, I wanted him off the team, but geez, that'd be a little extreme. I'll say this. Glenn backed it up. He's a man of his word, which you got to respect, because in the past, we've heard the old, guys are going to be held accountable nonsense from Jet coaches, and then nothing happens. I mean, if Robert Saleh or Jeff Oberg were still coaching this team, Xavier Gipson would have been promoted to captain this week before the Bills game, right? So it's a breath of fresh air. I'm glad that Glenn is being true to his word. Obviously, that this is something that, to me, had to be done. If I want to be critical, I could say Xavier Gipson should have been on the team in the first place, which I stand by, and I think a lot of us felt that way going into roster cutdown day. But I do appreciate, the Jets not being stubborn or stuck in their ways and holding someone accountable. I think it sends the right message to the rest of the team that things are going to be different. This is not a country club environment. You make a mistake, that catastrophic. There's going to be, a punishment for your actions there. And I think they did the right thing with that decision.
Yeah, I mean, here in Central New York, our coach is running laps after wins, for crying out loud, right, with the football team.
Brown, baby.
Accountability around here. Talking with Jake Asman, our Jets insider, as we go inside the Jets every week with Jake. Your questions in comments, your likes, thumbs up. It'd be more than helpful. And don't forget, subscribe at MC Show Digital. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports. Let's just take 30 seconds, learn a little bit more about our friends at Play It Again. Warm weather sports season is here, and if you want to gear up and save money on some of the top brands of golf, soccer, and baseball equipment, and much more, Play It Again Sports can be your solution. With both new and gently used gear, Play It Again has prices way less than regular retail stores. And for all you golfers out there, get some quick money for those
clubs you've got stashed away and are collecting dust. Play It Again is always looking for quality gear. No appointment necessary. Just bring it into the store. Play It Again Sports in the DeWitt Town Center on Erie Boulevard. Don't spend more. Play it again. PlayItAgainSportsSyracuse.com.
All right, back with Jake Asman talking all things New York Jets. You mentioned the offensive line, Jake. I think one of the other things that has to be pointed out is there were a lot of question marks coming into this first game about Breece Hall. Does Breece Hall still have some pep in the step? Can he still put his foot in the ground and get past people? Certainly looked like in game one he could do that.
100%. He looked like the old Breece Hall and not the guy we saw last year that I think clearly was not at 100%. That knee injury was way more serious than anyone would let on. His speed was down, and you kind of saw a guy on Sunday that was back to his old self, the explosiveness, the ability to kind of see things develop in front of him and cut and make the right read. It was very impressive. I think the Jets are going to be a team that is going to heavily rely on Breece Hall, not just as a runner, but we saw 2 catches for 38 yards as a receiver as well. I think one thing you could look to maybe see this week, more Breece in the screen game. The one time they did it, he had a huge catch and run. I think we could see that more against the Bills on Sunday. But I was very encouraged. The run blocking up front I thought was excellent, especially Olu Fashanu. Most of Breece's yardage came when running to that left side. So how could you not feel really good about what you saw from Breece? I thought Isaiah Davis, when he was out there, he was solid. Braylon Allen had the nice touchdown run. So overall, very encouraging day from the running game in general.
Did you have any, because there was one question asked, and Aaron Glenn immediately swatted it aside. At the end of the game, Justin Fields was running on that final drive. Maybe he could have gotten it. I thought so. Looking at a few replays, he might have had to truck his shoulder and maybe get it. But as he was running on a 4th and 3 play, he looked to his left and said, oh, my God, Garrett Wilson, my number 1 wide receiver, is open. Chucks it over to him. Jalen Ramsey ends up hitting him after he catches the ball temporarily, and then it gets knocked aside. I believe it was Connor Hughes in the post-game presser said, hey, coach, did you have to say anything to Garrett? He went like, what am I going to say to Garrett? Like, he's Garrett Wilson. Like, no, I'm good. Thanks. He dropped the ball. We move on. So do you have anything to throw at Garrett Wilson for dropping that ball at the end of the game?
Look, obviously Garrett will tell you, and he did say it afterwards, he should have had it, but that's also a really good play by Jalen Ramsey. Like, give him credit. Like, I don't know if, like, every player in the league is going to hold on to that ball. I think, the great ones they do, and Garrett, I'm sure, will be better from that experience, but he was so good in the game. It's tough to be overly critical of Garrett Wilson. It's just tough to be critical of anyone associated with the offense. A Jet offense scored 32 points. The Jet team total on the betting line was 17.5 points scored. They put up 32 and lost. So look, there are some things they got to clean up. Sure, the 2-point conversions, I didn't love the play call on each of those. Okay, fine. Maybe Fields could have taken it with his legs on that last play. Maybe, I don't know. I think we're nitpicking at that point. I think ultimately give credit to Ramsey, who's a former All-Pro, making a nice play. It's just, to me, it's one of those things. It's football, and ultimately the Jets made too many mistakes on their own where, the Steelers did enough to win the game. They didn't turn it over. They ultimately got it done.
I thought this was going to be a game dominated by defenses. I bet the under on this game, Jake. Didn't work out all that well. One of the things that Jet fans will certainly remember, because it's not going back that far, was this thing called Revis Island, where you used to send out a receiver and Darrelle Revis would just take care of that guy for the day. Well, the Jets pulled out Sauce Island, dare I say, in this Steelers game. Let's talk about Sauce matching directly up with a very athletic guy in DK Metcalf, who certainly looked like he had plenty of pep in his step when he was able to get the ball, but Sauce did a pretty good job keeping it away from him.
Yeah, I was very encouraged that they finally let Sauce do something that I think a lot of Jet fans have been clamoring for years. I mean, here's a guy that you made the highest paid corner ever before training camp, but you're not going to let him travel when you're facing a team that clearly has a number 1 receiver, and then there's a drop-off after that. So I'm glad that the game plan allowed for Sauce to do this. Thought he played a great game. The stats on the screen there, you see it. I mean, 2 catches, 18 yards when he was on Metcalf. I thought he did a great job. And, I don't know if you do it this week against any of the Bills receivers because they're a different style of offense than what Pittsburgh is, but you play Mike Evans and the Bucs in week 3. You got CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys in week 5. I think when you kind of go down the line, there's going to be more opportunities for Sauce to do this. And it sounded like Glenn was very impressed, and Sauce passed this first test of being, a corner that could shadow the number 1 receiver with flying colors. So I don't know what we're going to call it as Jet fans. You had Revis Island. Maybe, this receiver gets covered in sauce. I don't know, but Sauce was awesome on Sunday, and I'm very excited about that.
I did see that. I think it was Michael Nanny, a good buddy of all of ours here on the show. Lost in the sauce was the thing a couple of years ago. So maybe that's what we dust off and bring back here to the universe here. And as you said, Jake, criticizing the offense may be the wrong place to go because of everything that they provided. But something I'd love to see is this Tanner Engstrand offense, to your point, what's the counterpunch? All right, no one saw it. Now they've seen it. Now what's your counters to it? Rookie utilization. Mason Taylor had 1 catch for 20 yards. We didn't really see much of Arian Smith outside of the return game. I think that's something, me personally, I was waiting for the entire game. Where's the Justin Fields just unload shot and see if we draw a PI or get a big play out of it? So more Mason Taylor, more Arian Smith. I think those are more recipe ingredients that can be added to this mix.
100%. I think that's all going to be part of this offense evolving over time. Do we see the deep ball downfield to Arian Smith this week? He was only out there for, I think, 6 total snaps. Mason Taylor, he's dealing with an ankle injury now, but he did go out there and have that one nice 20-yard reception in this game. Do we see more throws over the middle and try and get him involved? Because we know he's someone that could be, a nice weapon in this offense. I mentioned the screen game. Do we see more screens to try and set some things up? Let's see what the Jets now do offensively, because the Bills have some film from last week to kind of evaluate and go off of. What do the Jets do to kind of throw new wrinkles out there so there's no tendencies yet on what they're going to do? I think that's a very fascinating thing to watch this week.
Jake, we've talked about this before. I mean, I think the Jets should have one of the top defenses in the NFL, certainly a top 10 defense. So what do they got to do to fix things here? Because that was a lot of points scored by an old man with limited receiving core and maybe not even the greatest running game in the world. So what went wrong here defensively, and how can the Jets fix it?
I think if you look at the touchdowns, 3 of them happened on miscommunications by players that you expect more from. Jamian Sherwood, Michael Carter, Brandon Stevens, I guess, I don't know if we could say we expect more from, but, he had a really good training camp. I know people questioned the signing at the time. I was like, okay, well, if we can't trust Aaron Glenn on cornerback evaluation, like, what can we trust him on? So they clearly believe Stevens is going to be better than what we saw because he was horrendous on Sunday. I think they got to clean up the miscommunications. It was, even though a lot of the players are back, 8 of the 11 starters on that side of the ball from last year, it is a brand new system, right? Glenn and Wilkes running a completely different defense than Robert Saleh. So, there's going to be some growing pains there. Miscommunications, they happen, but it can't be like 7 or 8 like what we saw on Sunday. So they got to clean that up. Got to tackle better too. Tony Adams missed a brutal tackle on 3rd and long in the first half that led to a Rodgers touchdown drive. I think if they clean that up and, oh yeah, when the ball hits you in the hands, you got to make the play. Like if you're going to win this game Sunday, Josh Allen, as good as he is, he'll sometimes give you a chance to turn him over, and you got to make sure you capitalize on those plays if they're there. So cleaning up the miscommunications and making sure that when there's an opportunity for a turnover, you actually convert on those opportunities. I think that's the biggest thing the defense has to try and figure out.
All right, Jake, come on, just spoil it. I know you got it somewhere in the Jake Asman headquarters over there. What's the blueprint for the New York Jets upsetting the Buffalo Bills? You've given it to the Jets a few times because the Jets have upset the Buffalo Bills several times at MetLife Stadium. So I don't know where it is laying around over there, but what does it say? What's on it?
I think it goes back to kind of what we were just alluding to, right? I think they got to force turnovers on Josh Allen. They probably need at least 2 turnovers to win this game. Definitely at least 1. They got to win the turnover battle. I mean, the difference on Sunday against Pittsburgh was the Jets turned it over and Pittsburgh didn't. There were 2 opportunities for the Jets to fall on fumbles. They didn't fall on either. I think winning the turnover battle will probably be the biggest thing. I also think start fast. I wonder if the Bills, after this great win against the Ravens, emotional win, Sunday Night Football, a team you might see again in the AFC Championship game, are they going to be riding that emotional high? Maybe they come out a little flat against the Jets, right? The Jets at home, they're 0-1, desperate to try and get a win. Are the Bills going to maybe overlook the Jets a little bit? Can the Jets punch them in the mouth early in this game and kind of get the fan base involved, get the confidence up from the players on the sidelines? I think a good start for the Jets, I think will go a long way in this game. They're not built to play from behind, at least we don't think. So getting off to a good start and maybe taking advantage of the Bills being in a bit of a lull after that emotional win, maybe that's a way for them to go out there and, have a legit chance to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it does have the feeling of being a little bit of a trap game. I mean, that was a pretty big tilt on a Sunday night. And the way Buffalo wins it, it's going to be hard to rematch that emotion. And, let's not forget they were in their own building too. Now they come into another building. There are some possibilities there, but I hate that term trap game. Go ahead, BG.
Yeah. Well, Jake, we've got Jake Asman and your mama's favorite general manager, baby. You guys doing it every single week. New York game days, Sundays, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. You guys just had your first dip in the pool. Not your first dip together. You guys have done that several times, but your first dip for your brand new show, ESPN New York. First off, recap. We asked you for a recap of the Jets-Steelers game. Give us a recap of Mike Tannenbaum's performance. Grade that sucker. How'd he do? And set us up here.
It's fun to grade a guy who used to have to give grades on players, right? So let me give you the Mike Tannenbaum grade. Mike was awesome when he remembered that he has to unmute his mic before we start each segment. There were a couple times I'm like, back here on the show, yada, 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 talking about the Jets-Steelers game coming up. Mike, what do you think about this? And then it's like just dead air. I'm like, Mike? And then he's like, yep, I was making some great points on mute. It's a shame no one heard them. So that happened a couple times, first show of the year. It's, spring training or preseason for all of us. But it was a lot of fun, great interaction from people on the phone lines. We had two great guests. We had Rich Samini on and Jordan Renan for previews for both the Jets and the Giants. We'll do that every Sunday on the show. So if you're a football fan, we gave you betting picks, fantasy advice, went through every game and got Mike's thoughts on each matchup. So it's the ultimate football pregame show, especially if you're a New York football fan. So first show was great. We're back at it Sunday at 8 a.m.
But no moral victories, Jake. So, okay, he had a few muted Mike moments, sure. Okay, but you got to clean it up for next week, though, right?
100%. We're trying to be perfect every week. That's not possible, but we strive for greatness on New York game day.
All right. Jake, always great to talk to you, my friend. Always great to break down the Jets. We'll see how this one goes. This one will be interesting. I got a feeling, Boy Green, at the end of this week, the Jets are going to be 0-2 and the Giants are going to be 1-1. Now, that sounds like crazy talk. It may not be crazy talk, but we'll see. We'll see where it stands when we get back together with Jake Asman again next week. Jake, enjoy the show. Always great to have you. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you guys for having me. Go Jets.